What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Life's Playbook. This is the final episode of season three full seasons. And today we are going to be going over our predictions for the AFC North. As always, I'm your co host, Noah, and with me, your host, Quinn Jackson.
Hello, everybody. You heard the man. I'm your host, Quinn Jackson. We're gonna be predicting each team in the AFC North's schedule, where we think they'll finish the season, as well as, the Browns. We are Browns fans, as well as where we think our own team is going to land by the end of the season. So, let's get into today's episode. Before we get started with today's episode, make sure to download Prize Picks, the most elite sports fantasy app. If you want a chance to show off your sports intelligence. And one more quick, sad little piece of news in the football world. R.I.P. Kyron Lacey out of LSU. Very tragic what happened to that dude. But he had a seemingly good start to this season at LSU. He had a lot of potential. So rest in peace to him. He could have been a great prospect someday in the NFL. Having said that, let's dive into today's episode. How this is going to work is we're going to go through each team's schedules, their 2025 schedules, both home and away, predict whether each team is going to win the game or not, and their overall record at the end. We're going to be as unbiased as possible. We're going to try to be as unbiased as possible with all four teams, because we are Browns fans, and it is in our nature to be biased against the other three. But it is no secret that the other three teams are leaps and bounds ahead of us, realistically. So, we're going to try to be as unbiased as possible. Let's talk about it. And let us know in the comments if you're a fan of any of these AFC North teams, where you think your team is going to land when it's all said and done in 2025. Let's start with our team, the Cleveland Browns. Let's go through our schedule and see and predict what our overall standings in the AFC North will be. I'll start with the home opponents. Week 1 against the Bengals. Who do we are we coming out 1-0 or 0-1?
So this all comes down to who we have behind the center, and who we have in our backfield. Because as of right now, Nick Chubb, he's still not signed. He's still a free agent. So I wonder if we're going to end up picking him up or we're just going to let him walk. But yeah, if we have Joe Flacco back there, if we have Kenny Pickett, it all just comes down to who's throwing that ball. And for this game, I do feel like we're going to go against the Bengals. They do have a good offense over there. Not really heavy defense, but Joe Burrow likes to throw that rock. And yeah, I have them going 0-1 for the first matchup against the Bengals.
Yeah, I think unfortunately I gotta agree with you there. I think there is still, bear in mind, there's still a lot of time left in this offseason. So a lot of teams can still make moves and trades to improve post-draft. So there's still a lot of time. But if the Bengals defense continues to be what it was last season, the offense pretty much stayed the same. Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow. I think he's much as I hate to say it, I think he's gonna cook us. I think we're gonna go 0-1. But I do think we can split the series this year, 2025. We'll come back to that when we circle back to game 2 against the Bengals. Moving on, Pittsburgh Steelers. Who do we like in this one? Are we going 0-2?
Same situation here. It all depends on who's throwing our football. And it's the same situation with the Steelers because they do not have a set quarterback over there either. But they do have a good wide receiver room. They do have a good defense. But I feel we do match defensively and offensively with them. And I do have us going 1-1 against the Steelers with this one.
I think you said it best. We are, in terms of defense, we are up there. Both teams, we got great defenses, elite defenses at times, but our offenses are both extremely terrible, especially ours. But I think this is another one of those teams where I think we can split the series with. I think I can agree with you there. I think we'll get the Steelers early in game one. I think we're going to go 1-1 as well, but I think overall we'll split the series with them. We'll come back to that when we come back to game two against the Steelers. The Baltimore Ravens, another home team. Who we got?
I have the Ravens coming out of this one. Lamar Jackson, outstanding player. They do have Derrick Henry. They're a good team over there, offensively and defensively. And first matchup, I just feel we're not going to have what it takes to beat them in this one. So I have us going 1-2 overall right now.
I gotta agree with you there. I think so. Right now, the Cleveland Browns we are predicting are 1-2 thus far. And these are all the home games so far. With that being said, let's move on to the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen coming back on a major contract. I'll just flat out and say it. I don't think we stand a chance against Buffalo. I think as long as Josh Allen is there, we may not stand a chance against Buffalo. They're a great team, great coach. I do think there are some question marks defensively for Buffalo. But again, there's still a lot of time and there's question marks in the receiving room too. But I still think there's a lot of time post-draft for Buffalo to fix those question marks. But I think we stand no chance. I see the Browns going 1-3. 1-3 so far.
So I'm gonna go opposite with you on this one. I'm not gonna be like hypocritical or sticking with the Browns, but like I don't feel the Bills have the offensive ability to do what it takes. Like you said, they don't really have a receiving room. They have Josh Allen, James Cook. I don't really know any receivers over there on Buffalo, and I just feel our defense is gonna stun Josh Allen and the Bills over there, and have us go 2-2.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Early upset. I'd feel inclined to believe you on this, but it is Josh Allen, and he is a reigning MVP, and I think the Bills know they got holes to fill, and I think whatever the move, depending on the moves they make in the draft and what they do post draft, will determine whether those holes get filled or not. But overall, my thinking is it's Josh Allen. As long as he's there, we might not have a chance. But I have the Browns going 1-3 thus far. You have the Browns going 2-2. Maybe a little generous there. A little generous there with that. But let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. I actually think we can pick up a win here. I think the Browns can go 2-3. I actually think we can pick up a win. It kind of depends on how Tua looks down the stretch, if he's on the field or not, because we know he has a big injury history. The Dolphins' offensive line is almost non-existent. They have a lot of gaps to fill in that offensive line. Defensively, they have a lot of gaps as well. I don't think an aging Jalen Ramsey is enough to push that team defensively forward. So I actually think we can get a dub here against the Dolphins. I got the Browns going 2-3.
I completely agree with you here on this one. There's a lot of things that need to be done over there in Miami with the Dolphins. They still need to settle on what they're doing with Tyreek Hill. And like you said, that O-line is atrocious. Tua's going to get ate up. Myles Garrett's going to have a field day this game with the Dolphins O-line. So, yeah, I do have the Browns going 3-2 on the season right now.
One other fact that I forgot to mention about the Dolphins game is, well, first off, whether Tyreek Hill is on the Dolphins by then or not, because I think it's still up in the air that he wants out. He's coming out and saying he's backtracking, so it's up in the air what happens with him. But it also depends on what's going on with him as well. That'll be a big factor in that game. But I think we can sneak away with this one. So right now I've got the Browns at 2-3. Moving on to the Titans, I think this is the first no-brainer win for the Browns. I think this is the first no-brainer win for the Browns. Give me the Browns to go 3-3. No brainer. Titans just don't have really any stable pieces. The quarterback room is in shambles. I don't think Cam Ward is going to be good enough to compete against a defense that we have. I think this is a no-brainer win for the Browns. 3-3 for the Browns so far, in my opinion.
You completely said what I was going to say over there. The Titans, There's not really much notable or known players over there. The quarterback room's atrocious. That offense is atrocious, and that defense is even more worse. So yeah, I do have the Browns going 4-2 right now on the season.
With that being said, moving on to Green Bay, I think this is another L. Now, I understand Jordan Love is a turnover machine. He had a very high touchdown to interception ratio this past season. Still very young in his career. I still think he's worth every penny that he's getting paid. I think the wide receiver room has a small question mark in it for Green Bay, but I think Matt LaFleur and that offense, I think they'll get it going. I think they can get the job done against us. I have the Browns going 3-4. I think they'll get the job done against us.
Packers, they did some great things after Aaron Rodgers. They picked up Jordan Love, and they went and picked up some notable players in the free agency. And, you know, I do feel they have what it takes. And notable L right here, and have the Browns going 4-3 right now.
So you have the Browns going 4-3. I have the Browns going 3 so far. Moving on to another fellow rival in the Packers' respective division, the Vikings. Now, they are rocking with J.J. McCarthy. They'll be rocking with J.J. McCarthy at that point, and he remains to be seen because obviously he did not have his rookie debut because it got cut short in the preseason due to a meniscus injury. So he'll be a huge factor and a huge player to watch out for. Not going to trash on the kid because he went to Michigan, but he'll be a huge factor for Minnesota. They brought in, based on the offseason that I've seen the Vikings do so far, they brought in great offensive line help to keep them protected. Justin Jefferson is still there. Jordan Addison is still there. I actually, despite them rocking with essentially a rookie quarterback, I think the Vikings can get the job done against us. I have the Browns going 3-5. Yeah, I think despite J.J. McCarthy having his rookie season, quote unquote, I think they can still get the job done. He's got too many reliable weapons, and they upgraded that offensive line. And Kevin O'Connell is a great coach, so I have no problems, no worries that JJ won't be good. I think the Browns will go 3-5. Might be a little controversial pick, but I think the Vikings can get it done. As much as I hate to say it.
So yeah, I'm agreeing with you here. You know, J.J. McCarthy, he still has yet to show what he can do in the NFL. But you know, I'm not doubting his talents. We're just gonna have to see what he does up to the point to when he plays Cleveland. And you know, the Vikings, they do have a good roster over there with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Sorry, veteran running back Aaron Jones. I do have us taking the L, and we're going 4-4 on the season.
With that being said, our final home opponent for the season, San Fran. Now, this is probably going to be more controversial than the Vikings pick, but based on the offseason that San Fran has had so far, it's not looking great. Now, we're not great. Cleveland Browns, we are not good. But I don't know. I am ultimately torn between this because I think, based on what the Niners did to themselves, I think we have a shot, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call an upset here as our final home game against San Fran. I think we're going to get an upset here. The Niners pretty much self-destructed themselves. Not saying they can't rebound in the draft, but I think, you know, the defense has gotten significantly injury-prone. There's a lot of questions with, you know, Trent Williams and whether he'll be, you know, able to give him a couple more years left. Debo is not in the building anymore. Ayuk is coming off an injury. So I think we can get an upset dub here to cap off our home game schedule. I think the Browns can go 4-5. Very controversial pick, but this offseason for San Fran has not been good.
Oh yeah, I agree with you here. You know, San Francisco, they've lost a lot of players, and you know, the Niners, they're kind of off and on in their seasons because of injuries. You know, they lost Christian McCaffrey last year, and then you know they did trade away Debo, and he was battling injuries last year. But I do have, the Browns taking this to finish their home run or home season so far, 5-4, and yeah, I have them going 5-4 at home.
So far, out of 9 games, I have the Browns going 4-5. Noah, you have the Browns going 5-4. Again, that San Fran pick might be the most controversial, but I think with what San Fran has done to themselves, we actually have a chance. And depending on what we do post draft, will tell the tale. Moving on to the away game slate, we come back to Cincinnati. Are we getting? Are we splitting with them, or are we getting swept in this series?
So, my opinion, I have us losing this game to make them go 5-5 on the season. Only because it's still uncertain on who's throwing the football, and we know these rivalry matchups. Sorry, these rivalries tend to get heated, and I do feel that the Bengals have what it takes to take this rivalry.
Yeah, I think, oddly enough, I think we might get swept. I think we might get swept. I'll agree with you there. I think we might get swept by the Bengals for once. And I say for once because normally we split with the Bengals. But like you said, depending on who we have throwing the rock and what we do post draft will determine how we look against the Bengals. And like you said, these division games are tough. So I think we could get swept. We could get swept. However, I would not be surprised if we still split when it's all said and done. But I will rock with you there. I think we get swept, and I think the Browns go 4-6. So I have the Browns going 4-6 as of right now. Moving back to Steelers game 2. Are we getting swept, or is this going to be a split series?
So originally I had us beating the Steelers that game, and I do have us beating the Steelers again. It's in these rivalry matchups, it all comes down to who we have and who wants it more. Not just ours, but like any divisional matchup, it comes down to who wants it more. And since I wouldn't really say they're close, but the rivalry between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, it's a big thing. So I do have us taking this game to advance to 6-5.
That'll be interesting. I know the Steelers fans will definitely say otherwise. They will most likely say they're going to sweep us because they have been sweeping us these past couple years. Me personally, so I have the Browns at 4-6. Me personally, I don't know. I think we split the series here with Pittsburgh. I think we get it. I think we get at least one dub here against Pittsburgh. I think the Browns go 5-6. I think we split. I wouldn't be surprised if we got swept because the Steelers, they somehow always find a way to sweep us in the season. But I wouldn't be surprised if we got swept. But I think we split here, and I got the Browns going 5-6, which brings us to our final division rival, and this is where I think we get swept. I don't think we're going to win a single game against the Ravens. I think we get swept here. I have the Browns going 5-7 so far.
Yeah, so I agree with you. That Ravens team is like they're dominant. They're hungry from last year, and I do have them sweeping us along with the Bengals, and we advance to 6-6 on the season.
So Noah, you have the Browns going 6-6. I have the Browns going 5-7. We got away with beating the Ravens. We got away with beating the Ravens. I think it was the first game in the 2024 season we beat them, but we got away with that one. I don't think it's going to happen this time, though. I think we're going to get swept. Jameis, we miss you. Moving on to the New England Patriots. Well, with the offseason that the Patriots have, I don't think. First off, I don't think the Patriots are going to be like third in their division. I'll say that much. I think with the offseason that they have, they are having, I think they'll be better than the Jets and better than the Dolphins. That's my hot take for this episode. I think the Patriots will be better than the Dolphins and the Jets. Specifically with the Browns, I think I would not be surprised if we lost to the Patriots, but I wouldn't be surprised if we beat them. But for the sake of the episode, I think we just barely scraped by New England. I have the Browns going 6-8. Again, I would not be surprised if the Patriots beat us. I think the Patriots are going to be much better than people anticipate. I think Drake Drake May is going to have a phenomenal sophomore season. So I think I got us going 6-7, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots beat us.
So this kind of hard because there's nobody really for Drake May to throw the ball to over there in New England for real. And New England still needs to work on their offensive line, and I feel that's going to be their downfall against us. And I have us going 7-6 so far.
You got us with a winning record, 7-6. I have us with a losing record at 6-7. That's interesting. That's interesting. Moving on to the Patriots' division rival, the Jets. Justin Fields most likely will be the starting QB over there. It'll be interesting to see what kind of season he has. Obviously, him being an Ohio State guy, I wish him the best. Hope he has a great season over there because it's been tough for that man. He hasn't really found his footing. But he's not going to find his footing against us. I think we beat the Jets. And I got the Browns going 7-7. I got the Browns going 7-7. I think we beat the Jets here.
So I agree. They're going to go 7-7 this one. I feel they're going to lose to New England over there. I like Justin Fields. I like what he does. Pittsburgh, they gave up a lot by letting him go, by letting him walk. And, he does have Garrett Wilson over there and Sauce Gardner on that defense. And I feel they're going to take this matchup to have us sit at 7-7 on the season.
And with that being said, we both have the Browns 7-7, so everything is even Steven right now. Again, bear in mind that this is all off season. There's still a lot of time for a lot of these teams to make drastic changes, which could drastically shift opinions. But these are our predictions/projection. Moving on to the LA Raiders, I think this is another no-brainer win for Cleveland. I think the Browns go 8-7 here. I understand Pete Carroll is in the house, and he is a great coach. He's got a Super Bowl under his belt, and he's reuniting with Geno Smith. But I think they're going to need a lot more than just Pete Carroll and Geno Smith's bond to fix the team. Not only do I have the Raiders going last in their division, I don't think they're going to beat us. They have too many holes to fill, just like Tennessee. The Raiders have too many holes to fill in one season. It's not going to cut it. I think the Browns go 8-7 here. Another no-brainer win.
So, yeah, I agree with you here. They need to get Geno some help over there. They did give him an extension, so I think they feel like they found their guy in the quarterback room. And I do feel they do have a lot of areas to fill over there. And I do have the Browns taking this one going 8-7 on the season.
And coming down to our final two away games, Detroit and Chicago, to knock them out of the park. I think Detroit is going to stomp us. I do understand Ben Johnson is not in the building anymore, and he is the head coach to the Bears. But they pretty much, and Aaron Glenn is not the DC over there anymore as well. He is the head coach of the Jets. But other than that, I think the Lions, they pretty much retained everybody, and everybody is still healthy, to my knowledge. I think they're going to stomp us. I got the Browns going 8-8, and I'll get to the Bears in a second. But what do you think about the Lions matchup?
So, yeah, I agree with you here. The Lions have done great things, with their rebuild. They went and picked up really good players. They went and found an outstanding coach. And I do feel we're going to take a very tough loss here to make us 8-8 on the season.
And with that being said, to cap off the entire schedule and to cap off the away game slate, the Chicago Bears. This one is interesting, in my opinion. I think this one is interesting. I don't think we're going to clean stomp the Bears. I think Ben Johnson is going to bring out the best in Caleb Williams. I think Caleb is finally going to have the season that we thought he would have coming into the league, but we know how poor the Bears organization is ran. I think we can beat the Bears. For the sake of the episode, I think we go 9-8, but I would not be surprised if the Bears end up beating us here. Just like with the Patriots, I think the Bears are going to be significantly better. I wouldn't be surprised if we lost to them, but I think I have the Browns finishing 9-8, as much as I hate to say it. I got the Bears losing to the Browns.
So yeah, I agree with you about Caleb Williams. This could be his year. This could be his time to show us what he was the number one pick for. It's going to come down to what the Bears do this offseason and in the draft and who they could get to help out in those areas. But I do feel the Bears are going to take this matchup against us, with an upset or, it's going to be a close match. And I do have the Bears pulling away to make us 8-9 to finish in the regular season.
So I got the Browns going 9-8, and you have the Browns finishing 8-9. Very, very interesting. With that being said, if you are a Browns fan, let us know in the comments down below what you think of our schedule and where do you think we are going to finish. Let's move on to the division rivals, Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's talk about them. We're going to kind of run through these last couple teams somewhat quickly, somewhat not, for the sake of time, for time's sake. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers 2025 schedule, starting with their home slate. Let's talk about it. The Ravens.
So yeah.
Go ahead.
So the Ravens at home, they play first. The Steelers play the Ravens first at home, and I do have the Ravens taking that matchup and have the Steelers sitting on 0-1 to start the season.
Yeah, I think the Ravens, I agree with you there. I think the Ravens get the job done here against Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh starts the season 0-1. With that being said, moving on to the Bengals. Who do we like? Who do we like for Pittsburgh coming out of this one?
Again, I do have the Steelers losing this matchup against the Bengals. Cincinnati usually tends to beat Pittsburgh first match on the season, so I do have the Steelers sitting at 0-2 to start their season.
Yeah, I agree with you there as well. I think the series between Pittsburgh and the Bengals will split, but for this first encounter, I think the Bengals will get the best of them here. I think the Steelers start 0-2, which brings us to us, Cleveland Browns. What are we thinking?
I said that the Browns are going to sweep the Steelers this year, and so I do have them sitting at 0-3 to start their season off.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there as well. Gotta agree with you there as well. I think the Steelers start the season 0-3 as well. Looking at their home stretch here, it's pretty rough for the Steelers. If I'm being honest, it's pretty rough for a home slate. But I do see some wins in here for the Steelers home-wise. Brings us to the Buffalo Bills. Who do we like here?
Pittsburgh taking this one. The AFC North is a different game of football. It's something that, Buffalo's not used to. And I feel like that Steelers defense is going to stun Josh Allen over there. And I do have them sitting at 1-3 so far.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there as well. I think Pittsburgh gets an upset here at home. I think they can get the job done against the Bills. So we both have the Steelers so far at 1-3. Moving on to Green Bay. Is this another upset or do the Steelers lose this one?
Yeah, so I feel like it's going to be another upset. After all of those 3 L's within the division, I do have the Steelers, it's going to be like sort of like how Ohio State reacted to losing to Michigan. It's going to be their comeback. So I do have them sitting at 2-3 to beat these Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you there as well. I think this is another upset. I think the Steelers start 2-3. With that being said, I do think the Steelers finally tie their record at 3-3. I don't think the Colts have what it takes to beat the Steelers here. I like the Steelers coming out of this one at 3-3.
I completely agree with you that one. The Colts, they have a lot of rebuilding to do. They still need to find their quarterback. Anthony Richardson, he had a great rookie year. He had sort of a rough sophomore year. So if he could bounce back and do what he was doing his rookie year, maybe it could turn around the story in Indianapolis. But if not, I do have Steelers taking this one, going 3-3.
With that being said, moving on to the Miami Dolphins. Now, we both, I think, have the Browns beating the Dolphins. And I think this will be the case for Pittsburgh as well. I think they'll beat the Dolphins here as well. I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins beats Pittsburgh at home, but I think Pittsburgh, their defense will show up. And again, it all depends on Tua too and what that offensive line is looking like for Miami. But I think the Steelers are They in this 7-game stretch so far, I think they are 4-3.
I agree with you here. Miami, they have a lot of work to do over there. They still need to settle down on what they're doing with Tyreek Hill. J.J. Watt, he's going to have a field day with that offensive line over there. So I have them sitting at 4-3 on the season.
And with that being said, that brings us to our final two Steelers home games against the Vikings and the Seahawks. Me personally, similar story with what I said about the Browns. Because how I'm looking at this, the Steelers' schedule is kind of relative to how I'm looking at our schedule, because I think both teams are kind of relative and the same in terms of offense and defense. I think the Vikings can get the job done here against Pittsburgh. I think, again, Kevin O'Connell's a great coach. I think JJ is going to be good, and he's got a lot of protection and a lot of good weapons to elevate him. I think they can get the job done here and beat the Steelers at home. Steelers home.
Reach over there, Minnesota's an excellent team. Without a starting quarterback, without a franchise quarterback, Sam Darnold did his thing over there and led them to the playoffs. And I do feel they have what it takes to beat the Steelers in this matchup and have the Steelers set at 4-4 on the season.
We both have the Steelers at 4-4, which brings us to the Seahawks. Cap off the Steelers home stretch. And I think I'm going to go with the Steelers here. Don't quite like what Seattle has going for them right now. I'm not a fan of, Sam Darnold being in the building and having that much money. I get Cooper Kupp is there, but it's no secret that he is injury prone. So I like the Steelers on this one, beating the Seahawks and going 5-5.
Yeah, another agreement here with you. Seattle, they traded away a lot of key players over there. They traded away a lot of offensive and defensive help over there. And I do have the Steelers taking this matchup to have them sit 5-4 in the season.
So, with the 9-game home game stretch, as Browns fans, we are being courteous enough in giving the Steelers a winning record so far. Moving on to the away game slate brings us back to Baltimore. Are the Ravens going to sweep the Steelers here, just like we predicted for the Browns, or did the Steelers split with the Ravens?
I have the Steelers splitting with the Ravens. Tough divisional matchup here. The Steelers going to be hungry from their loss last time, and I do feel they're going to take this matchup to have them sit at 6-4.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there as well. I think the Steelers, because the Steelers somehow always find a way to pull one off against Baltimore. I think the Steelers will pull one off this season as well. I like the Steelers in this one as well to go 6-4, which brings us back to the Bengals. Is this going to be a split series, or are the Bengals or Pittsburgh getting swept here?
Yeah, I have the Steelers taking this one too. They want their revenge back from losing earlier on in the season, and I feel they're going to take back and tie the series up 1-1 to advance to 7-4.
Yeah, I think I got to agree with you there as well. I think the Steelers split with both us and the Bengals. Speaking of us, that brings us to the Cleveland Browns. Now, personally, this being a split series between us and them. Steelers fans are obviously going to think otherwise. I think they're going to sweep us, but I think this is going to be a split series. I see Pittsburgh 7-5 here
against the Browns. I did say that the Cleveland Browns were going to sweep the Steelers this year. And I do have them sitting at 8-5 on the season.
Having said that, that brings us to the Bears and the Lions. Same thing with the Bears against us. I don't think it would be crazy to say the Bears have a chance against Pittsburgh, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what Caleb looks like down the stretch. For the sake of the episode, I'm going with the Steelers on this one, but I would not be surprised if the Bears can get it done against the Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised. Same thought process with us, because I think the Bears are going to be much better than people anticipate them to be. I got the Steelers beating the Bears here and improving to 8.
Yeah, I agree with you here on this one. Chicago, I don't feel they're going to have what it takes to beat Pittsburgh, so I do have them sitting at 8-5.
Which brings us to the Bears division rival, the Lions. I think this is going to be a stomp in the Lions' favor. I think the Steelers, just like us, Steelers are going to be 8-7. The Lions, if they're going to stomp us, I think they're going to stomp the Steelers as well.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. Lions are a pretty good team. Real well rounded over there offensively and defensively. And I do feel they lose this matchup to sit at 8-6 on the season.
So right now we both have the Steelers at 8-6. That brings us to the Chargers. And I think this is a slightly more even matchup than it looks. I think the Steelers can walk away with this one, and mainly because the Chargers, that wide receiver room for the Chargers is just chopped from head to toe. They don't really, I'm surprised they didn't go after DK when he requested his trade, or they didn't go after Cooper Kupp when he was out on the market. I thought they were going to do something drastic with that wide receiver room, and they kind of didn't. So I'm going to give it to the Steelers solely based off the fact that they actually have a decent wide receiver room. It does depend on who the quarterback is going to be, but the Chargers' passing game is essentially chopped from head to toe. So I got the Steelers advancing to 9-6.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. The Chargers they're falling off, man. They lost a lot of good players, a lot of key players over there. They need somebody to protect Justin Herbert, and they need somebody he could throw the ball to. So I do have the Steelers losing this one. Not losing, but winning this one to advance to 9-6 on the season.
Which brings us to the final two away game slates against the Patriots and the Jets. I think they'll beat the Jets, so I'll get that one out the way. I think they'll beat the Jets pretty easily. And as same thought process with the Browns versus the Patriots. I would not be surprised if the Patriots beat the Steelers. But for the sake of the episode, I think the Steelers get the job done against the Patriots, as much as I hate to say it, which puts them at 11-6, which might be a bit high, given a typical Steelers season. But it's as unbiased as I can get. I think Pittsburgh finishes 11-6.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on terms of this one. They do finish the season overall 11-6. The two teams they're playing, they do have a lot of work to work on, a lot of things that need to be done in the offseason for them to do what they need to do. And the Steelers, they're doing it. They just need to get that quarterback back there for them to have this season to go 11-6. To finish their season, I have them going 11-6.
So as it stands right now in the AFC North, we got the Browns at 9-8 and Pittsburgh at 11-6. Moving on to the Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals. For time's sake, we are going to speed run these last two couple teams. So let's talk about it. Noah, you want to kick us off? You want to lead us through the entire Bengals schedule?
So yeah, first at home, they are playing the Patriots. I do have them taking that to start their season off 1-0. Next, they're playing the Jets. Again, that team needs work. I do have them sitting at 2-0 to start the season. Then they play Jacksonville. They have Trevor Lawrence over there. He was battling injury last year, and I don't feel they have what it takes to beat the Bengals. So I do have the Bengals advancing to 3-0. Then they play Chicago, another team that was up in the air on what they're doing this year. And I do have the Bengals winning this one to go 4-0. And then they're playing the Lions. I do believe this is going to be their first L on the season, and I have them sitting at 4-1. Then they're playing the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals, they need help over there. They got Kyler Murray. There's not really anybody else over there helping him. So I do have the Bengals sitting at 5-1. Then they play the Steelers. I did have them beating the Steelers the first matchup, so they advanced to 6-1. Then they play the Ravens. That's a tough Baltimore team over there. I do have them losing that first matchup to go 6-2. And then they play the Cleveland Browns. I did have them winning that, and to finish their home record, I have them sitting at 7-2. And to go over their away schedule or their away opponents, they play the Bills. I do have the Bills beating the Bengals to set them back to 7-3. Then they play the Dolphins. Dolphins need help. They need O-line to protect Tua, and they still need to figure out what they're doing with Tyreek. I have the Bengals beating them, going 8-3. And then they play the Denver Broncos. You know, the Broncos, they had a surprising run last year in the season, but I don't feel they have what it takes to beat Cincinnati. So I do have the Bengals sitting at 9-3 on the season. And then they play the Packers. I do have them losing this one to sit at 9-4. Then they play Minnesota, another tough opponent. I have them sitting at 9-5. Then they play Pittsburgh, another team. I do believe I had Pittsburgh losing that first one, and I do believe that they're going to split the series to help them sit at 10-6. And then they play the Ravens, another tough opponent, but I do feel they're going to split the series on that one to sit at 11-6. And then the final opponent, the Cleveland Browns, I feel they're going to take this one and sweep the series with the Browns, have them sit at 12-6 to finish the season.
Yeah, I think I got to agree with you on that entire. That entire schedule. The biggest factor for the Bengals season, in my opinion, and I think Bengals fans know this as well, is what that defense is going to look like, because that defense is extra chopped, and we don't even know what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson. There's no real new news on what's going on with him, so I think the biggest factor for the Bengals season is what that defense is going to look like. But I agree with you there. So as it stands right now, we have the Browns at 9-8, Steelers at 11-6, and the Bengals at 12-6, which brings us to the final division rival, Baltimore Ravens. And for time's sake, I'll do the Ravens this time, and for time's sake, I'll speed run through the Ravens schedule, starting with the home slate against the Bengals. I think they'll split here with the Bengals. I think they got them here in first encounter. I have the Ravens going 1-0. I think they're going to sweep us. I have them going 2-0 against us. Pittsburgh, I think they're going to split here because Pittsburgh always finds a way to magically pull one out whenever they play the Ravens. So I have the Ravens. But first encounter, I think the Ravens are going to start 3-0. So I have the Ravens starting 3-0 thus far. New England, I think for the Ravens standards, I think this is a no-brainer win here. I have the Ravens going 4-0. Jets, another no-brainer win here. Ravens improved to 5-0. Chicago, interesting. Not going to call an upset here because I think it's all going to depend on how well Caleb plays. But I think this is going to be another dub here. I have the Ravens 6-0 so far. Here's where their first loss comes in against Detroit. I think Detroit is going to beat us, Pittsburgh, and the Ravens. This will be a very good game, I'll say that much. It's going to be a very good game. It's not going to be a curb stomp like it would be against us in Pittsburgh, but I do think the Ravens pick up their first L here against Detroit. I have the Ravens at 6-1. It's going to be a real good game. Houston, this could be an upset game depending on what the Texans' offensive line looks like, because the offensive line for Houston is not good at all. And I think Houston really needs to, draft-wise, they need to put a lot of emphasis on the offensive line. They've done some other great things. They've extended a bunch of key defensive players, and that's all fine and dandy. They brought in Christian Kirk, receiver from the Jags, but that offensive line is terrible. The Texans will be terrible. With that being said, I think the Ravens are going to beat the Texans here and improve to 7-1. Moving on to LA, I think this will be an upset for the Ravens here. I like LA. I think they can get the job done here. Sean McVay is a great coach. Matt Stafford. This could be Matt Stafford's final season. Who knows? But we shall see. But I really like LA here. I think this is going to be an upset L for the Ravens. I have the Ravens going 7-2. Moving on to the away slate. Brings us back to the Bengals. I think the Ravens, they split here with the Bengals. I think second encounter, the Bengals get the better of them. I have the Ravens going 7-3. Second encounter against us, I think this is going to be a clean sweep. Unless we magically have a Jameis type of game. Jameis led us to a win, but I don't see that happening here based on our quarterback play. Steelers, again, I think they're going to split here. So right now I have the Ravens at 8-2. Steelers is where the Ravens pick up their third loss. I have the Ravens at 8-3. I think they're going to split with the Steelers. Buffalo, rematch of the AFC Championship. No, excuse me, divisional round. Excuse me. Yeah, the divisional round. I'm getting ahead of myself. Rematch of the divisional round. I was thinking of the Texans against the Chiefs. But this is going to be an exciting game. I think it's going to be much, much different. However, I think the Bills, yet again, will get the better of the Ravens. I have the Ravens going, what is it? 8-4 right now? Is that right? 8-4? So I have the Ravens going 8-4 right now. I think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be interesting. Again, it's a rematch of the divisional round. But I think Josh Allen is going to get the better of Lamar. Which brings us to the Dolphins. I think the Ravens improved to 9-4. Green Bay, I think the Ravens improved to 10-4. Minnesota, I think the Ravens improved to 11-4, but I would not be surprised if the Vikings upset here, which brings us to Kansas City. And because it is the regular season, I'll give it to the Ravens. Typically, the Chiefs are not that exciting in the regular season. So on that note, I'll give it to the Ravens, and I have the Ravens finishing, 13-4 in the division?
I had them sitting at 12-5 on the season.
I have the Ravens sitting at 13-4. And
So
I know
for
what the Chiefs fans are going to say. It's the Chiefs. Lamar has never beaten the Chiefs, but it's the regular season, and the Chiefs don't really look that great in the regular season. So as it stands, I have the Ravens at 13-4. We both have the Bengals at 12 and
12-6.
12-6. We both have the Steelers at 11-6, right?
Yes, sir.
And I have the Browns going 9-8.
And I
You
have
have the
them
Browns going
8-9.
8-9, which
Overall,
would put the Ravens first in the division, then Bengals, then Steelers, and last us. As much as I hate to say it. But with that being said, if you are a fan of any of the AFC North teams, let us know down below what you think your team is going to look like post draft. And where you think your team is going to land. I think some of these standings, some of these picks may have been a little generous. I think the Steelers for sure may have been a little generous on that one. Hey, we're trying to be as unbiased as possible here and as realistic as possible. But Noah, do you have anything else you want to say before we close out?
it's going to be a crazy season for the AFC North. 3 AFC North teams are going to probably make it to the playoffs this year. Sadly, Cleveland's not one of them. You know, they still have some things that need to get done over there for them to make it back to the playoffs again. But you know, they're on a rebuild. I don't want to say a full rebuild because you know Myles Garrett, he doesn't want that. So we just got to see how this draft goes. Maybe the Cleveland season could turn around. A lot of these teams, so with Cleveland and Pittsburgh, it just depends on who's throwing the football for them. Like right now, it's still uncertain on who we're drafting at 2, and for Pittsburgh, they still need to figure out who they're getting. You know, there's talks of Aaron Rodgers. They could go for people in the draft, but it's still uncertain.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a crazy division. You could argue 9-8 is very high for Cleveland since they are technically in a rebuild state, like you put it. And who knows? Our predictions could be way off. They could not. I think honestly, 11-6 for Pittsburgh is way high as well. But here we are. Again, we were trying to be as unbiased, as realistic as possible. With that being said, it will be interesting to see what all 4 of the teams draft and do in the draft. That will also help drastically change opinions and what the final records could look like. Having said these things, this has been Season 3, Episode 12 of the Life's Playbook Podcast. Final episode of Season 3. We will catch you guys Thursday, Episode 1, Season 4. With that being said, peace out. One more quick thing before we head out. Draft is in 11 days. Be on the lookout for that. With that being said, peace out.